This Croud Academy session is one of the first ones that we're doing. For those of you that aren't familiar with Croud, Croud are a multi-channel digital performance business with a great range of products, teams and technology. But today we're going to be talking specifically about Amazon. In my role, I'm responsible for Croud's performance commerce products, and Amazon is a big part of that product set and what I do day to day. And although the presentation is named 4 Steps for Amazon's Success, there are actually many steps to Amazon's success, and it's getting more complex and competitive all the time. However, we've grouped some of the key areas into 4 clusters, and we hope that the content will be of interest for people who are just kind of starting their journey on Amazon, and also those that have been there for a little while. So the first area I'm going to talk about is around availability. No Amazon presentation these days is complete without some of these big numbers. I suppose the points that I wanted to make here are obviously we know there is a huge opportunity on Amazon. A really high volume of ready-to-buy shoppers are in the platform at any one moment, and also thanks to the Prime program, they often have almost unheard of levels of loyalty and repeatability. Amazon also has a really strong grip on e-commerce generally, and you can see there that nearly 80% of all e-commerce transactions include some kind of Amazon interaction. And finally, the chart on the right hand side there, which many of you will have seen, it's been in the press quite a bit, clearly shows that around about 66% of all customers now start their search for new products on Amazon. And building on that point, where you can see the 21% of those that start on a search engine, I think you will have all noticed that when you make a search on Google, quite often one of the top 3 organic results, probably one of the paid results, and often multiple shopping results are also Amazon. So that 66% probably becomes somewhere in the region of 75 to 80% within one click. The other thing I wanted to highlight was around Amazon's incredible knack of nurturing brand indifferent shoppers. The Amazon environment feels safe to shoppers. Most people who shop on Amazon don't really understand the buy box and whether they're buying from a manufacturer via the vendor program or whether they're buying via the marketplace. They just feel that they're buying from Amazon. And I think because they feel safe in that environment, it gives us a really good opportunity to put brands and products in front of shoppers who do feel like they are able to try new things. So it's a great opportunity in that way too. As well as the great levels of opportunity on Amazon that we've talked about, obviously there's a risk to not being there as well. Whether you like it or not, shoppers are on there and they are looking for your products. The examples there show around about 7 million high intent brand searches per month happening for these brands, and this was taken in February, so obviously in peak trading periods that would be a lot more. And we selected those brands just particularly because they've been in the news for their Amazon strategy or lack of Amazon strategy over the last couple of years. When you're not there, there's a big risk in that your competitors will be conquesting your brand terms. There's a few examples on screen there. The one on the right, I'm told by the people who work on Dyson, is known as a shark attack. So as well as competitors conquesting your brand terms, even if you decide you're not actively going to sell on Amazon, quite often there are many third-party sellers who could be selling your products in the marketplace anyway. I recently heard that Pandora have around 9,000 active products across the marketplaces, even though they've taken the decision not to be there. Because of that, they're trusting these third-party sellers to own the experience. And when I talk about experience, I mean in terms of the content that's on the product pages, the imagery, the text content, but also the customer experience in terms of fulfillment and the way that they handle returns and respond to things like reviews and questions. Now, I'm not an inventory management expert. I leave that to our team. But I think that when we're talking about availability on Amazon, we have to talk about stock management and inventory. There's two key ways that this is really important. Firstly, the way that you manage stock is fundamental to ensuring that you can have a profitable Amazon channel. There's a few examples there, but that kind of feeds into the storage costs that you incur. If your goods are perishable, then waste is something to consider as well, as is the process you use to fulfill cross-border. Having these things in place means you can be profitable and be competitive on Amazon. The other key area is around the algorithms. So in-stock rates and fulfillment are a really important part of the buy box algorithm, and they also have a strong influence on the search algorithm too. So for those key reasons, inventory is really, really important. If you have a seasonal product, and obviously Amazon has a number of key promotional periods as well that we're all familiar with, then your approach to inventory management is really important in this respect as well, to make sure that you are prepared for those peaks and troughs in demand, and that you are able to use the different levers you've got around price, promotions and sales in order to speed up or slow down strategically when you need to. And the final point I wanted to make on availability was just around joining those dots. So we should never underestimate the impact that Amazon is having on our other channels. We often talk about Amazon being the glue that kind of binds together the shopper journey. And we see from the stats here and the stats that we saw a little earlier, Amazon has a really strong grip on overall e-commerce, in that around about 80% of all transactions include at least one interaction, whether that is checking product reviews, whether that is searching for more product information, maybe on the go in store, or it could just be doing a price check. I think we should never underestimate the impact that Amazon is having in terms of the sales that we're seeing in our other channels. So availability is the first area, and that balance of opportunity and threat that we talked about, and that I guess that fear of missing out, gives Amazon a kind of irresistible force. But once you've made that decision about whether you want to be there or not, and you decide that you do want to be there, then being visible is absolutely key to success. Like on Google and other search engines, most of the traffic on Amazon is mopped up by the top search results, and 70% of people don't tend to go past the first page. So when we're thinking about visibility, the first thing we should look at is our product detail pages, making sure that they are set up and optimized correctly in two main ways. Firstly, for the Amazon search algorithm, so from an SEO perspective, but I guess most importantly from a user perspective, in order to drive good engagement and conversion. There are many resources online that you guys could access if you wanted a full breakdown of the different fundamentals here and the ranking factors, so I'm not going to go through those. But what I would say is that it's really important that you do get those things in place as much as possible from day one when you launch your products. Amazon has a honeymoon period where it will artificially inflate the performance of your products for a period of time in order for it to ascertain the correct ranking. So it's really important to get things right from day one. Customer expectations have started to exceed the minimum thresholds we often hear quoted for SEO as well. So I think it's really important that we go further than that algorithm. One good example here is that we often hear Amazon SEO people talking about having 15 or more reviews in order to satisfy the algorithm. But we actually know from research that users are looking for more like 100 reviews before they can truly feel like they trust a product. It's also really important to consider the category that you're in and the need state of those shoppers. Clearly, people buying books are going to have different needs to those buying TVs or things that are particularly sensitive to sizes and dimensions. So I suppose it's about getting into the mind of those shoppers and making sure that we remove as much friction as possible from that process. One really great way to do this is by studying the user-generated content. So by that, I'm talking about the questions and reviews you have at the product level. Often you'll be able to pick up themes that will help guide your content strategy on your products. And that's something that can really help you evolve them over time and make them perform better. And finally, don't forget to check that they render well on mobile devices. Mobile is around about 40% of Amazon's overall traffic, be that mobile, web or app. And it's really important to make sure that you check your product pages on mobile to ensure that text isn't being truncated in a way that's not useful. And also, as we can see in the example here, where you have text annotations on images, just making sure that they appear nicely on mobile too is really important. For those of you that have been on Amazon for a little while, you'll probably understand the flywheel concept, but I thought it might be useful just to highlight again that there is a feedback loop that exists between all the different areas of Amazon that you can see on screen here. And collectively, doing these things well in isolation, understanding the overlap between them is kind of the secret to success. If you do that well, it creates a kind of synergy that will give you ultimately an edge over the competition. The other point, I guess, that's really important now is that advertising is essential to success on Amazon. A few years back, that possibly wasn't the case, but it certainly is now. We can see that many brands are reporting higher return on ad spend through Amazon, higher than that of platforms like Facebook and Google. And many of them are indicating that they plan to increase their spend, and the same can certainly be said for many of Croud's clients. It's also true to say that the Amazon self-serve ad proposition has developed significantly over the last 18 months. It's not just a lower funnel tactic. There are many different formats and targeting types that mean you can meet shoppers at different moments, not just on Amazon, but also off Amazon through the DSP. So there's a wide range of options there, and a good Amazon advertising strategy will look to encompass all these different components in an integrated way. I've already mentioned this, but obviously for many brands, winning in those peak trading moments on Amazon is a huge part of the overall performance that they might drive in a year. And it's no longer possible to just turn up in these moments and expect to do well, as it was a few years ago. And I think that the two key things that I wanted to highlight here is that really careful planning in the build up to these moments is essential. Planning around stock, as we've already mentioned, budget allocation, timings, promotions, which products are going to be included in those promotions, and the ad tactics that are going to wrap around those, and making sure you have a really detailed plan and you're prepared for each of those phases that you can see on the slide there. Alongside that, it's really important to be able to react in real time. A lot of clients now set up war rooms during these peak trading moments, and they are ready to flex and react in real time. And it's really important to have a plan B as well. A client of ours during Prime Day a few years ago found they lost the buy box moments before they were about to go live with their biggest promotion, and they didn't have a product to be able to put into its place. So I think it's really important that we plan for scenarios where things don't go to plan so that we're ready to react in real time. So the third area I wanted to look at was around engagement, and not everybody thinks of the Amazon platform as an opportunity to build engagement or build brand, and possibly that's a challenge that Amazon themselves are trying to address at the moment. Actually, the opportunities for richer, more engaging content are on the increase, and I'm going to go through just a few tips now. The first one is around imagery, really, and I think I mentioned earlier that customer expectations are really growing, and around images and videos, that's definitely true. So as well as getting the very basics right in terms of Amazon's specifications, I think there's a few other things here that will hopefully be helpful. When we're building product images for our clients, we like to imagine that we are putting the product into the user's hands, thinking about how they might handle that product, and then using that as a way to decide what photos we want to include. You'll have noticed yourselves, if you use Amazon regularly, that many brands and sellers are now using images that include infographics, lifestyle images, and often using annotated text to highlight key features and USPs. This can be really, really effective. It's also important that you get your images in the right order. Again, thinking about how somebody might handle the product, trying to find the correct order and sequence of those images is important. And it's even more important to get your main image right. Your main image is the image that will appear on your search results pages and therefore have a big influence over click-through rate. Video, where it's available, and it should be available to everyone soon, is also a really great way to demonstrate key features and USPs. It's also a good way to avoid or stop negative reviews. And the example I always give here is we were working with a toy manufacturer some time ago that had a product that connected to Wi-Fi. We noticed that a lot of negative reviews were appearing because customers were struggling to connect it to Wi-Fi. We worked with that client to create a video that helped to show that, and almost overnight those negative reviews stopped and performance started to recover. So there are other ways to use video to try and help the consumer out. So different ways to think about it, I guess. The other final point here is, we do have a lot of data around Amazon performance now, and it is definitely recommended that this shouldn't be sat and left. You should always be experimenting with the imagery that you're using and using the data sets available to try and improve things. A+ content, for those people that aren't familiar, is the content you can see on the right-hand side, which sits kind of below the fold on the product detail pages. Now, this content is really key in the comparison phase. When the consumer's considering different products, it's a great opportunity here to highlight USPs, but also include things like comparison tables. It's also the first opportunity in the typical Amazon shopper journey to start to introduce brand content and build brand trust. Many of the best practices that I've already mentioned around images apply here in terms of the quality that you use. We feel that lifestyle images are really, really essential as well, making sure that it scales up nicely on mobile, and again, making sure that you are testing, adapting, and using a data-led approach. The next area I wanted to highlight is stores. Amazon are investing a lot in stores at the moment, and I think that makes it a good bet. And it should certainly be part of your strategy on Amazon. Stores themselves are becoming more engaging. There are lots more options for visually engaging widgets within the store builder interface, and Amazon are also making stores much more discoverable. You may have already seen in some markets stores recommendations appearing on certain pages, but also soon we're told that they will begin to appear in search results on desktop and mobile. Amazon is trying to show brands that they can brand build and encourage basket building and repeatability, and so it's a big strategic focus for them at the moment. Now, there's a lot of text on this slide, but I suppose the key point is that we should always have and follow a structured approach to how we are building and optimizing our Amazon stores. This is an approach that we use, built around research, taking in intent signals from keyword behaviors and existing store analytics and other data sources, making sure we've thought carefully about shopper behaviors for that category, but also the behaviors that are typical in marketplaces, and then taking all of that information into the design and build phase, where we prioritize the types of content that we want to feature in the wireframes. A good store kind of never stands still as well, so you should constantly be testing and learning and using the stores for the promotion of different products. It is now possible to schedule content changes to stores, so we will see them become much more dynamic and start to update around things like promotions and key seasonal trading moments. The final area that I just wanted to quickly touch on was just around how we can be competitive on Amazon, and it's kind of the big question for a lot of sellers and vendors that have been there for some time. We know that competition is increasing all the time, and that means costs are rising. One study I read, and certainly the experience we've had as well, is that CPCs last year were up somewhere between 10 and 15%. So we can do many of the right things with the levers that we've got available, because ultimately the level of data we can get out of Amazon today around lifetime value is fairly sparse. There are some things we can do, but it's quite sparse. So we adopt a model called the lifetime value mindset, which is understanding the different levers and the contributions that they can make towards growth over time, and then optimizing them in an integrated way. We do have some interesting techniques for modeling lifetime value on Amazon, especially for anyone who's using DSP and search ads. I haven't included that today, but if that's something that people are interested in, then I'd be really interested to connect and have a conversation around that. But ultimately, what we can do is take new to brand metrics and repeat rates out of different parts of the Amazon ecosystem and bring them together in a way that helps us understand lifetime value. Ultimately, the sellers and vendors that understand the true value of their customers are the ones that are going to be able to compete near the top of those auctions, which, as we pointed out earlier, is absolutely key to success. So that was, I guess, a fairly whistle-stop tour of the 4 areas that we think are really, really important to success on Amazon. Obviously, each of these areas individually could be, a deep dive session in its own right, but hopefully there's some content and ideas that are useful for some people there. If people want to get in touch, obviously they can reach out to us at Croud, or if anyone wants to talk Amazon, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn as well. Love to try and help where we can. So just like to say thank you very much everyone that's joined today, and have a good rest of the day and take care.